What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 3 of Trackmasters and Tallboys. Back for PBR this time.
I just had the short can. It's cold outside. Shrinkage.
Inflation. I understand.
I might drinking a green tea. Got off work.
I gotta go into work. Like I said, episode 3. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. This is about tires. I think this is going to be a really, really good one. I hope we can get it all in one episode because there's a lot to go over as far as tires. As you guys can see, we brought our resident tire expert on, Mr. Fred Miller, Uncle Fred, as I like to call him. And if there's a Dualsport tire out there that somebody has come out with, Fred's bought it and tried it on his bike. So he'll be able to give us a lot of good feedback. And thanks for coming on, Fred.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to be on here with you guys.
Heck
I'm
yeah.
definitely no master, that's for sure, of the tires, but definitely bought my fair share of them.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, Fred's garage looks like a small tire shop.
You open up the toolbox, it looks like a KTM parts store, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, I've definitely hit up the Fred Miller parts store for my bike several times. That's for sure.
Tell you what, it's the best in town.
Well, like I said, kind of in that post I put out, guys, if you don't join the StreamYard thing and give them access to your Facebook, we can't see who's commenting. And that's fine. If you guys don't want to do that, I understand. While this is going on, I'm going to kind of pull up on my phone. So those that comment, I can kind of see who's watching here with us. So, yeah, I'd say let's go ahead and get started with this, guys. And, I mean, obviously the name of the show is Trackmasters and Tallboys. So I think it would be remiss to not start with Kenda as kind of our first manufacturer we'll go through as far as tires go. And obviously the venerable Trackmaster. So I'll go ahead and let you guys have the floor and you kind of go over what you think about Trackmasters.
Well, I'll tell you what, Trackmaster is a very good tire as far as trackability goes.
Yep.
I mean, and the price, you just can't beat it.
But
unfortunately, when you put it on like
Yep.
a 500 or a bigger bike, you're lucky to get 600 miles out of it.
Well, you're lucky you get 600 miles off 250. I'm testament to that. But as far as like the terrain that we typically ride, it's my personal favorite rear tire. That thing will go around a side hill like it's Velcroed to the ground. To me, it's really one of the best. I've had better service out of half tread Trackmasters than some brand new square edge tires that I've tried.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, you get on a hillside or something, it's got
Yep.
really great side knobs.
Or even once they start wearing down those side knobs, still, if you can get them to where they can grip, that thing just hooks.
Yeah, it's definitely a good tire for the price. No doubt about it.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. Back in the day, it was kind of funny because Trackmasters were kind of the poor man's race tire. If you showed up on the starting line with a Trackmaster, it's because you didn't have any money, and kind of people make fun of you for racing with them. But kind of being the broke college kid that I was growing up, when I first started paying my own bills and kind of paying my own race fees and stuff, that's what I ran. And yeah, I mean, all kinds of off-road racing conditions. I mean, they work great. They hooked up. They just didn't last.
Yep.
And that kind of continues, I think, for the Dualsport side of things too. Like you guys said, the back tire just doesn't last very long. I mean, it hooks up great and everything.
Yeah.
For a complete street bias knobby, though, they actually do hook up pretty well in the street, I think.
Really, you can lean a Trackmaster a lot further over than it has any right of being leaned. And it doesn't really get really weird and squirmy like the Kenda 50/50 tire with the soft side knobs.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, on street, it's actually a pretty confident tire for something that looks like it's almost a paddle.
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of going along with that, my dad actually has that GS 1100 Suzuki that he's kind of made into a cafe racer, and it has Trackmasters on the front and rear. And I've asked him about it, and he says it hooks up decent on that bike. We'll see how long it lasts. But, yeah, I'm a fan of Trackmaster. if you're in a pinch and price is an issue, even though the prices are going up, just like on everything else around here lately.
Unfortunately, they went from being you'd pick up a 120 profile rear for $50 when I got into riding around 2018. Now I think it's closer to like 70, but everything else has risen to the same extent. So they're still kind of the leader in price to value. I've had,
Right.
I don't know, at one point in time, I had like a 4-foot tall stack of them that I ran through, and I never had any issues with one being out of round or, heavily out of balance or anything like that. I've had nothing but good service out of them. It just took a 4-foot tall tire or tall stack of tires to make it 4,000 miles.
Yeah.
I know we kind of have a running gag, me and you, Trevor, that Trackmaster, it's here for a good time. It's not here for a long time.
I see guys on the forum all the time talking about, they want a tire that hooks like glue on any terrain, that lasts on the street for 2,000 miles and is as cheap as you can get. And it's the solution's there. You just got to buy 2 Trackmasters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every month.
And get familiar with a set of tire irons.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as like, durability and everything, it's kind of a softer compound. That's kind of what contributes to it hooking up really well off road, but not lasting very long.
They don't really chunk, I've noticed. I mean,
no, they just wear.
Not that I've had it on anything that's a horsepower monster, but like even riding on shale and stuff, they don't seem prone to chunking quite as bad as some tires are.
Yeah, I haven't had any issues with punctures or anything like that too, luckily. Kind of moving on from the Trackmaster, then I know it's one that's been out for a little while that you've run a good bit, Fred, and that's the Kenda Parker DT. How do you like those? I've never actually ran a set of those.
I ran that the season before last, and when it was slimy up there at Tom King's place, I was able to go around that whole track of his. And as far as durability, that thing is it's a pretty tough tire. I think it's like an 8-ply.
Yeah.
I mean, it's stiff. You don't have to worry about getting any pinch flats. That's
I
for
remember it wearing really well. I remember we got a wild hair and took that trip to Spruce Knob and back in one day, and that thing already had a significant amount of miles on it, and it held up really good to all that pavement abuse.
I think I probably got probably close to like 1,600 miles out of that tire.
That's good for
that's pretty good for the back.
Yeah, especially on a KTM 500.
Yeah.
What about the front? Does it do pretty good?
Well, I never got the front tire.
Oh.
The front tire that I actually go with as far as the knobby goes is that Shinko.
Yep. We will get on Shinko here after a while. That's definitely a brand I want to talk about.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think it's funny, this is a question that comes up all the time. You always have people asking you, hey, I want a tire that lasts forever, does great on everything, and full knobby, and it's just like the perfect motorcycle. Like, it just doesn't exist.
No,
you're compromising something. Like, I always kind of harken it back to the old days of the triangle. You have price, performance, and reliability.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Pick 2, because you can't have all 3. Yeah. Anything that's reliable and hooks up well is going to be super expensive. Anything cheap and hooks up well isn't going to be that reliable.
Yeah.
So, that goes for a lot of different things. But I also think it's funny, as we kind of go into these more manufacturers, that it's like one tire company or one set of tires, the front and back doesn't work well for everything. Like, you kind of got to mix and match. You got to have a back tire of one brand and a front tire of another brand. And you got to sit there and kind of micromanage and figure out what works best and build your own combo.
So it's a matter of figuring out what works best for your bike, for your style of riding.
Right.
Because there's front tire choices that, people suggest that, people suggest the Dunlop 606 front tire. And yeah.
I wouldn't suggest the rear either.
Yeah, we'll touch on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was something that was kind of interesting to me. I came into this with little prior knowledge of it, was, how common it is for guys to run a specific tire in the front that's not even the same brand or, anything else compared to the tire in the rear.
Yeah.
I've been running the Shinko 216 MX up front for quite a while now, and a Kenda in the back when I can find one. That's another issue, is supply chain issues. But
yeah, that's a big part of it too, man. Rubber's expensive. It doesn't matter if it's a motorcycle tire or vehicle tires, and it's just like everything else. Stuff's hard to get. So it's a lot of times it's what you can get, what's available, and what price.
Yeah.
And then another thing to think about too, I think, is how the tread compound is. Like a soft tire versus an intermediate tire versus a hard terrain tire. Obviously a hard terrain tire is going to last a long time, and it might be good for rocky stuff and hard roads, but soupy mud or water crossings, things like that, it's not going to hook up very well. So there's definitely a compromise there with your tire your tire durability for sure.
But I mean, as far as that Parker DT goes, I mean, even though it's basically a hard terrain tire, I mean, it'll do very well in like your medium, intermediate terrain as well.
Right.
Well, the knobs weren't obnoxiously stiff. I know, James, I sold you that Metzler MC360 mid hard, which is a desert terrain tire that I'd tried out. And to me, it was like a forklift tire in terms of, I mean, the knobs were extremely stiff on it.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Being a desert tire, it needs that to be able to handle the rocks and all that stuff in wide open desert. But
yeah. And I actually put that on the back of my XR650R, which had some heft and some weight to it, and torque out the butt, and it hooked up really, really well, and it actually did make the knobs flex. So weight was a really big issue with that tire. So it definitely sounds like the Kenda Parker DT rear is a good option. I've kind of been eyeballing that one myself.
I'm going to try one this year.
Yeah, for sure.
I think you'd be pretty happy with it. The only downside that I had with it is if you're doing a lot of blacktop riding, it's going to be noisy.
Yeah.
I mean, a Trackmaster on the back sounds like an airplane coming down the road anyway. People hear the tire whine before they hear the motor most of the time.
It's like a bias ply super swamper.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, I did get a couple of the Kenda gauntlets.
Have you tried one yet?
I've actually got one mounted on my other set of rims. I'm just kind of waiting.
I've been thinking about trying a Kenda gauntlet. I believe they are DOT.
That's kind of the more like trials looking tire, right?
It almost kind of looks like a Trackmaster.
Oh yeah,
tread. It's like the Trackmaster's big brother. The knobs are a little bit bigger. I think a little bit more spacing between knobs, but the tread pattern wise, it's pretty similar.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I got a couple sets of those. I'm going to give them a try. I mean, online, they had really good reviews. So
cool.
I'll find out this coming spring.
Yeah. I definitely want to try. I'd like to try a gauntlet too, just to see how I like it.
Yeah. I know Kenda also has the K270, which is kind of a 50-50 tire.
Yeah.
Now I actually ran one of those on the back of my XR 650R when me and you, Fred, went down to Shenandoah 500 in 2019. And that thing really did awesome on the back of that XR. I was really, really happy with that thing. The only thing that it doesn't do well in is like deep mud. I mean, the knobs just aren't spaced far enough apart, and there's not enough tread depth to clean it out very well. But other than that, it did really good on the road. It lasted a long time. I was super happy with it. The front tire, though, no, you need something a lot more aggressive on the front.
If I remember right, either Billy or his son, one of them had that specific Kenda on the front tire, and they'd commented on it was just not confidence inspiring and how it handled terrain, which makes sense being a 50-50 tire, especially on the front.
Right.
Yeah.
Having a tire that doesn't hook up the best on the back is, a little bit more fun sliding the rear end around and stuff. But when the front end slides and you didn't want it to slide, that's when it's a problem.
Yeah. Definitely don't want it to wash out on you.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I would much rather have a very aggressive front tire and maybe a rear that wasn't quite as aggressive, because once you kind of lose your confidence in your front tire, even on
It's
something you
difficult to
routinely
ride
do.
after that.
It's hard to get that out of your head and your mentality that when you need to stuff it into something hard, it's going to bite again. And once that's gone, man, it's just a liability to me.
Well, you remember there were a few years ago, Jamie, when about a week before you and I went down to Shenandoah.
Yep.
I had that one front tire on my bike. Just put it on there, and I washed out on a blacktop.
Yep. Yeah, what was that? Was it a Pirelli or I can't remember what was on the front?
It was actually that Pirelli Scorpion XC DOT front tire.
Yeah, I remember we were riding around. I think we went and had lunch there in Clarksburg or something, and we were coming back down through Jerry Dove, and it was that new little byway that they made that kind of goes up around all those office complexes and stuff. And I made a left on 73, and I'm just kind of trugging along. And I look back, and Fred's nowhere to be found. I'm like, where? There wasn't any red lights or anything to get stuck in back there. And I turn around, and here you come, and you're like, your front end washed completely out. I was like, oh, that's not good.
And that was on blacktop.
Yeah, I know.
It didn't like take the turns very fast.
No. Well, I guess on that note, we can kind of jump over into Pirelli. I know. I don't have a whole lot of experience with their Dualsport tires, their DOT stuff. I do have a little bit. I know a lot of guys like the Pirelli MT21. It's probably a slightly better Dualsport tire than the Dunlop 606. I do like the fronts, the MT21 fronts.
Yep.
They seem to do really well and last a long time. You kind of do give up a little bit on the street.
It's a bigger block pattern, but it also incorporates a good bit of spacing between lugs, so it still cleans out well.
Yeah, the MT21 rear does a lot better than the 606 does, but it just doesn't last as long, and it's about the same price as a 606 Dunlop. So, I mean, really, I don't really think you're gaining a whole lot there versus a 606 or an MT21 if you're dead set on something like that. Fred, you ever had any of that? Was that an MT21 that you crashed with on the front?
No, that was that Pirelli Scorpion. I never had the MT21. My brother did on his DR that one time, and it was a super stiff tire. He hated it. Just didn't want no flex to it for the trails.
They are a stiff tire for sure.
Yeah.
So I ran the Pirelli Scorpion, I think mid-soft or intermediate terrain on the front of my Kawasaki for a little bit. And then as soon as I found Shinko's 216 MXs, I didn't look back after that. But
the price difference there for sure.
The knobs on it were pretty small. It was an expensive tire too. It was like $90, and that was back in 2018. So Lord knows what it is now. But the knobs were relatively small. They were squirmy, especially when you'd start, especially on pavement naturally, but you could even kind of feel them squirm and try to, fight for purchase on hard pack and stuff like that. And the way that the center band of lugs was, once you got on hard pack or something, it was almost like riding a knife edge. Of course, it did really good in soft stuff that it could cut through, but otherwise it was like riding on the edge of a knife.
I know when I was racing, my parents were die-hard Pirelli people. They loved them. Like the old MT44 kind of scoop looking sand tire and the MT21 fronts and stuff. I know it's been several years ago. Morgantown Honda had a sale going on the MT16 Pirelli Gara crosses, and you could get a complete combo for, I think it was like $70. I'm like, heck yeah, sign me up. I'll try them out. And I really, really liked both front and rear tires. They were excellent. The only problem with those are the front is DOT approved. The rear is not DOT approved. And the rear, it was kind of a more soft terrain tire, kind of gummier. It hooked up really good on that 650R mine, and everything that we did, it was kind of like a Trackmaster, though. It just lasted about the same time as a Trackmaster. And there's also the non-DOT issue with that as well. So we all know that you don't want to really try that if you can help it, because Lord help you get in an accident, and then that's what they blame it on as being non-DOT.
Yeah, if you're in an accident, an insurance adjuster would absolutely love that, if you'd cause an accident, especially if the insurance adjuster found out you're running around with non-DOT tires on your bike, that's pretty close to being open and shut in terms of, all they have to do is state that they have probable cause that was the reason it happened.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I mean, run what you want, but, run it at your own risk.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't know if Pirelli has any other DOT tires other.
I'm not really.
MT21s or the Garacross being the front tire.
Really
let's see. I guess we could kind of move on to Metzler. We'll kind of get into the M's here now a little bit. I know I actually ran a couple of the Metzler DOTs. I'm not even sure exactly what the sub name is of the DOT tires they have for Metzlers. But the one that you sold me was DOT.
Yep.
And it was hard as a rock.
Oh yeah.
I know.
I sold it to you.
Yeah. Our good buddies over at Woods' Boathouse, who kind of helped sponsor our ride that we put on every year, the 304 Detour, they hooked us up with a bunch of Metzler front tires. It's like a MX 360 or something. I think.
Yeah, I think it's
MX 360,
right? And it was kind of the same vein. It did good. It was okay. It was too stiff for my liking.
Yeah.
Once you get into like kind of loose pack gravel and stuff, you were just squirming all over the place.
Yeah. The reason I picked up one of those MC 360 mid hards was there were guys that were saying, we're getting 1,500 miles or more out of a rear. And I didn't really do too much additional research into it. They're getting that in like Colorado, which, dry, dusty, rocky type terrain makes a lot of sense. If the tread compound had been a little bit more to the, I guess, durometer or whatever of a Parker DT, it would have been a great tire. But as it was just too stiff.
Yeah. I
noticed, like, especially if you were going over Creek Rock or something like that there was so little flex in the sidewall, even getting down to like 5 PSI, that it would just skate.
Right.
To the point that it didn't inspire confidence in the back.
Yeah. Fred, you ever run a Metzler on anything?
Yeah, there was the Metzler Enduro rear tire. I had it. And I tell you what, the tread wear on it, it was just about as fast as a Trackmaster.
Yeah.
I was very disappointed. You paid, I think it was probably like $110 for that tire.
Yeah. See, that's why I haven't gotten into like running a Pirelli MT21, because I've heard mixed reviews. There's guys that claim to get 2,000 miles out of them. There's guys that claim that they're, ready to be thrown in the garbage at under 1,000 miles.
I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of a tire snob, and as soon as that thing loses its front edge on mine and it starts stepping out or not hooking up as good, it's off. I take it off the bike, and I might only get maybe 900 miles at the most out of tires on my bike, and they're off there. I mean, I just, you see guys on all the other social media and stuff like, I got 3,000 miles out of this set of Metzler Carews, and it's a drag radial in the center with maybe some knobs on the side. I'm like, you're definitely not going off road with that thing, though.
That's what these tire companies don't want you to know, James, is if you run a knobby for long enough, it becomes a free supermoto tire.
That's very true. I've got several in the garage right now.
So speaking of square edges, this is kind of a quick aside. As tire prices are getting more and more expensive, I mean, that the whole square edge is kind of the most important feature. What are your thoughts on like a tire groover, tire siper? Like, at what point do they get expensive enough that it's worth the time to actually go through the trouble to put a square edge back on it with an iron?
I would say it depends on what tire you like. So if it's a set of Trackmasters that you love and that's what you want to run all the time, I really don't think it's worth the time and effort to groove a set of Trackmasters. If Continental TKC 80s are your thing and you love those and that's what you want and you want some more life out of them, well, a set of those is like almost $300. I could see spending the time to groove those, or maybe put some little ring grooves or something in there. I know we used to do it once in a while, especially me, like I said, broke college kid trying to ride and pay for everything. If I could get one more round out of a set of tires, then you better believe I was borrowing somebody's groover and making it work one more time. Now, the bad thing with that is it's like once you do that, I mean, they're gone. That race, they'll be destroyed. The knobs start chunking off. This just doesn't have enough reinforcement to make them survive.
Well, yeah, you're taking a gradual curve from the tire carcass to the knob, and you're creating a sharp squared edge where it meets. So naturally, it's going to make a stress riser where it's going to make it a lot more likely to chunk.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was, if you hadn't bought that Metzler, that was my next plan, was to essentially sipe a groove, kind of like on a Motaz Tractionator Intermediate, where it's like a 2/3 to 1/3 sipe and it alternates.
Right.
It's going to be my next attempt to make that thing flex so it was at least usable.
Bringing up Motaz, we might as well talk about them next since we're kind of sticking in the M's. Personally, I've always wanted to run some Tractionators like the Desert HTs or something along those lines, and it was either I couldn't get them in time for what I wanted to, or I didn't have enough money at the time to buy them. So personally, I've never run a Tractionator, although a lot of guys in our club do and absolutely love them. So I'll kind of leave the floor open to you guys because I have no experience with those at all.
Well, I've got the Tractionator HT, the hard terrain on the back, and I ran it pretty much off and on the last couple seasons. I mean, it's a little bit noisy. It's not going to hook up as good as a Trackmaster, that's for sure, if you're in the slimy terrain. But I mean, as far as the Motaz, I do have a set of the Raw Z's on my stock.
Those are surprised. Those really surprised me when you had those.
And I can get a whole riding season out of them. And the only time that I put the more aggressive tire on my bike is if I know that we're going to go up and do like White Day and some real hardcore riding.
Yeah. Like dedicated enduro style riding.
Yeah.
Those Raw Z's really surprised me. I remember when you first put them on, I really had some, I guess, reservations about them because they really don't look like they'd hook up very good. But they do surprisingly well.
Oh, yeah. They're quiet on the road.
Yep.
I mean, you get in rock sections and stuff like that. I mean, it grips right on those rocks. No problem. I've even did like log crossings and stuff down there at the Chip's place.
Mm-hmm.
Just this past year with those tires. And you know, Chips is pretty rough terrain. There's a little bit of mud, but if you get in their soft stuff, I mean, you got to pretty much just take it easy because it'll spin out way too easy.
Yeah.
But 90% of what we ride, those Raw Z's, I mean, I'm very happy with them.
I see a lot of guys with like DR650s, XR650Ls, and stuff like that really speak highly of them because they're a pavement-friendly tire that still maintains most of the off-road capability, whereas like you get into 50/50 tires and stuff like that, you're really starting to sacrifice once you get off the pavement.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're a person that mostly does like a lot of gravel roads, a little bit of dirt, I mean, to me, that's a perfect Dualsport tire to have. I mean, yeah, you're going to pay about $120 for them, but they'll last you all year.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely having a larger tread block size helps the wear a lot.
Oh yeah.
That was my problem with Tractionators is I was always interested in running one, either the hard terrain or intermediate terrain. But every time I get on somewhere to order them, there'd always be Trackmasters for like $50.
Yeah.
And I could order at least two for the same cost. And, you know, it's just, at this point, I get on a Rocky Mountain ATVMC and the rest is just muscle memory for nine Trackmasters.
Yep. Same here. I'll be like, yeah, I think I really want to try a set of MT21 Pirellis front and back this time. And I'll go to order them on my cart, and then something will happen and I won't be able to do it. And then next thing I know, I'm over at Buge's at Cycle Mart getting a set of Trackmasters.
Yeah. We've heard, you know, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand the merit of trying tires. If you got the money to try new stuff, have at it. But for me, like spending, it was like $90 on that Metzler or something like that, which at the time was 2 Trackmasters worth.
Yeah.
For a tire that as soon as I put it on and went through 13 Creeks, I hated.
Yeah.
Because like I said, it just did not inspire confidence, but it was on a little bit lighter 250. So as far as like a big bike tire, I think it would have been fantastic, but to spend the money and then it not be what you want at all is,
right. That's pretty disheartening. You go through all the effort of ordering it and installing it yourself and thinking it's going to be something really awesome. And then it ends up just being a turd. And you're kind of like, I know that kind of puts a brand bias in my head that, maybe these people have 2 or 3 other different types of tires that might be better, but it's like, that Metzler was junk. All Metzlers are junk. I don't want to run any more Metzlers. And a lot of times,
I try not to form too many opinions on tires that I guess not necessarily that I've run personally, but like people I ride with on a regular basis have also run, and I've gotten to see, like, especially being behind somebody that has a rear that doesn't hook up at all, watching that thing just dance around fighting for traction the entire time.
Yeah.
But we talked about like turd tires that are too hard and don't hook up good in anything soft and intermediate. So can we talk about Tusk D Sports real quick?
Oh, Jamie, he loves those tires, don't you?
I love them. They're the best. So yeah, my KTM 500 that I picked up there towards the end of last year had a brand new set of them installed. And, I'm big fans of Rocky Mountain and what they do. If you guys have never watched their YouTube stuff where they're doing Dualsport stuff, please check that out. It's a great, their series are awesome. They've done, Idaho BDR and 5 miles of hell in Moab on.
That's why I was going to bring up 5 miles of hell on $500 bike.
Just all kinds of awesome stuff. So make sure you guys check that out. And I try to support them when I can, as far as ordering parts or using their products. That Tusk, I know when they first kind of come out, it was kind of that's junk stuff, but they really have stepped their game up on a lot of things. And when I seen they had that the D Sports on there, the only information I ever had about a set of Tusk D Sports was our buddy AJ on the CRF running them. And I remember you guys saying they were hard as all get out to get off and put on.
I remember AJ brought them over to put the back on, and it was probably 85 degrees outside. So I just, threw them out on the concrete and figured we'd give them a little bit while we, shot the breeze or whatever and let them warm up, and then we put them on. And it was like trying to lift tire onto a rim. And it might just be that the CRF rim geometries, just not a compliment to the bead and the overall shape. But I remember, trying to force the sidewall apart enough to even stuff a tube down in it. It's a very stiff sidewall tire, but they're definitely more big bike friendly. Like if you do adventure style riding, I see a lot of reviews of guys that are really, really pleased with them in terms of pavement performance, gravel performance. They say they wear a long time, but like for what I want to do, which is more towards like, White Day, 13 Creeks, Fetterman, all that stuff. I just prefer a tire that has a little bit more hook to it.
I'll tell you, like I said, they were brand new on that 500 when I bought it. And when they were brand new, I really, really liked them, actually. They hooked up in everything that I threw it in, and I was a real big fan of the front tire. I will honestly say that Tusk D Sport front is probably the best knobby I've ever had on the street. I could corner that thing better than any other knobby I've ever had on the front. It was wearing like iron, and even still, because I still have those on there right now. Unfortunately, I haven't had time to take them off. Even still, the front still does really well for me. I've been tickled to death with it, and the price is good. But yeah, the rear, after 3 or 4 rides, when that front edge goes away, it's done. Like it just will not hook up on any type of wet grass or deep mud. We did that ride for my birthday, and you remember being there on Fort Hill, that little grass uphill section. I can go anywhere. I was literally just
please keep running, because I'm riding a high passing you on that hill climb for the rest of my life.
You and AJ come right up beside me, just chugging along.
Yep.
And I'm sitting there off the bike pushing to try to get the thing to the top of the hill.
So I do know of guys that have been dissatisfied with them enough on like more enduro style routing that they've just taken them off shortly after installing them. But then I
Now-
see a lot of reviews of guys with big bikes that absolutely love them for more adventure style routing.
Right. I'd say if you had like a big KLR, big XR 650L, like any of the Japanese 650s, and you didn't do a whole lot of, tight single track enduro hardcore type of
Or
stuff.
mud.
Yeah, a lot of mud and stuff. I think it'd be a great tire for the price and the performance of what you get out of it, and then the durability for sure. Because even though that front edge is wore off of mine, like that's the only place that it's wore on the rest of the tire. The tire actually still looks like it's in decent shape. It just the back doesn't hook up at all. I think it kind of goes back to what we was talking about, how you almost have to run combos of stuff, and like I would run the front tusk and a rear Trackmaster in a heartbeat. I think that'd be a great setup. Fred, you ever run any of the dual sports?
No, I haven't had try them out.
Don't do it. Don't do it on the back.
We've saved you or AJ and James have saved you the testing.
Yeah.
I know that AJ had problems there year before last up on Fort Hill, and I'm like, and that was pretty much like a new tire he had on the back.
Well, I remember.
Tire.
I'll be right back too. I'm gonna show you something.
Okay.
I bet you he's getting his Tusk tire.
I remember we put that tire on the back of AJ's and then left from where I live and went and did, I think it was 13 Creeks or something. And that Tusk just was skating around on the rocks and stuff. It was all over. It's like that tire wanted to be everywhere but under the back of that bike.
So it's gonna be kind of hard to see. I'll try to do it the best I can, but these are the new Tusk cross bites, and it's kind of the same vein as the Gara crosses. The front's DOT approved, the rear's not.
Yep.
My old man got me these for Christmas, so thanks, Dad. I appreciate it. And I'm going to run these, see what they do. You can see, man, it really looks like a Trackmaster a lot.
Yeah, it looks like a track.
A nice tread pattern to it.
Yeah, so that's the rear. Front kind of has your standard almost MT21 style front knobs.
Yep.
And it is DOT approved, so they're pretty forgiving. I'd kind of say it's like more of a soft intermediate. And
those are the Tusk cross bites.
Tusk cross bites, yeah. Like I said, the front's DOT, the rear's not.
Man, I would love to see Tusk come out with a rear DOT knobby that was in the vein of a Trackmaster. Even for the sake to have a little bit more competition in the market.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So many of these fronts, I've noticed that on a lot of lines of tires, that the fronts will be DOT approved, no problem, and the rears is just off-road use only.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why those Pirelli Scorpions were.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe kind of going back a little bit to the M's, Michelin. I know. I think it's all the new KTM Husky and gas gases. I think from the factory they come with Michelin Dualsport tires. I've ran a bunch of the off-road stuff, like the old Starcross S12s, M12s.
Mm-hmm.
Never ran any of their Dualsport stuff. So again, I don't have any experience with any of the Michelin stuff.
So I had a set of pretty fresh Michelin DOT knobbies, and I mean, realistically, the front hooked up as good as the Shinko 216, in my opinion. Tread pattern was somewhat similar. Reason I never ran them again was the price difference. The rear, it was fine. It wasn't a Trackmaster by any means, but I didn't have any big complaints out of it. They seemed to wear pretty good.
I like how our bar for our tires, it's always going to the Trackmaster.
For
the cheapest,
it's
like
beat.
Poor people tires, and it just works. It's hilarious. Like, well, I paid $190 for this set, but it wasn't as good as the Trackmaster.
That's the working man's knobby tire.
This is the working man's Dualsport podcast too.
Yeah, with the working man's beer.
Tallboys and Trackmasters, huh?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let's talk Dunlop.
Let's
talk about the elephant in the room. Every single forum you will ever go on, anytime somebody asks about tires, people will come out of the woodwork to recommend the Dunlop D606.
Yep. Personally, never ran one, but 2 years ago, when we were laying out the loop for the 304 detour, we actually ran some of the property there right beside my mom and dad's. And by the way, shout out, Mom, happy birthday, love you.
Happy birthday, Angie.
I was currently out putting arrows up on Andy Weeks's property, what we like to call Robinson Raceway. And I found out real quick through that whole process, and Fred, you can attest to this too, that trying to lay out a loop on a kickstart only XR650R sucks. It's terrible. And I'm trying to go through our section now. Robinson Run and Robinson Raceway, if you want to call it that. I mean, you guys have rode it. It's tight. It is tight, switchbacks, it's off camber. It's very, very challenging. And I got to the hardest section on that where I really had to go 2 feet, put arrow up, stop. And I just got tired of kicking that XR. And you're like, you know what? My dad's XR 650L is back at the house. I'll just hop on it. Electric start. I can throw all my stuff on there. It'd be real easy to finish this up really quick. So I went back, grabbed his bike, took off, kept going through the trail, putting up the arrows. And I'm like, man, this thing is just, it's sliding everywhere. It's not hooking up in the back. And I got to this one off camber section through a lot of really tight little kind of cypress trees. And I couldn't go. I had to push that thing all the way through there because it was just trying to slide down the hill no matter what I did the whole way through. And that thing was brand new. I mean, a brand new 606 on the back of that. So I get back to the house. I park the bike, and Dad's like, get it done? I was like, yeah, I got it done. I said, hey, what tire's on the back of that thing? He's like, oh, it's a brand new Dunlop 606. I said, well, good. I'll know to never put that on my bike ever. Holy crap, it was terrible.
And that seems like a tire that's kind of polarizing. It seems like it works really well on some people's bikes, and then for other people, it's just not at all what they're looking for. Which, I mean, everybody's usage case is different. It's great for, they're fine for most of what you're going to do on one. But again, if you're wanting to lean more into the enduro side, my gripe with them was they lack side knobs. I mean, they do have some side knobs, but being used to a Trackmaster that you could almost, you know how they are as far as side hilling, and then trying to go to a D606, that back end's constantly trying to slide down side slopes and stuff like that. And it was a pretty stiff sidewall tire. They were relatively expensive. They didn't last quite as long, or I guess near as long really, as what I was led to believe. But again, that might be a difference in like riding style and whatever. I know AJ ran one for a while.
Tom King likes him a lot.
Yeah, Tom does speak really highly of him, which for some style of riding, that's pretty much the type of tire that or type of riding that tire is set up for, is stuff that Tom does.
Yeah, it's a lot of black top and gravel and a little bit of dirt and so forth.
That's everybody, Dan Farnsworth. Dan, that Dad, I don't think he's ever ran at 15 psi. He's always at like 12 or 11. It's bare minimum on the 650L.
We had AJ's down to some ridiculously low number. Luckily, he had rim locks, but that it just wasn't. I guess we were trying to push the limit of what it was designed to do, which that's something that does have to be recognized. But
kind of going back to what we keep talking about though, like I actually really like the 606 front. To me, it's way better than the rear is. Yeah.
And then I've heard the opposite from a lot of people. I've heard they absolutely hate the 606 front, that it doesn't hook. It wants to wash out, especially if you're trying to stop on looser material going downhill. It's just like a bulldozer. But I've never tried a D606 up front.
Yeah, I had good luck out of mine. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I never tried the 606, but I did have the Dunlop Geo Max Enduro rear tire. Now, it did pretty good.
Yeah.
But I ended up getting 2 pinch flats the same day. You remember, Jamie?
Yeah, I do. And I actually had that same tire on the back of mine the last time I took the XR650R to Brandywine, and same deal, pinch flat. Right when we was coming up to where the Rocky Run ATV trail starts, I noticed the back end was sliding all over the place and come up there and had a pinch flat. So yeah, kind of odd. I don't think it's like yours was weird to have 2 in a row like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's uncommon because it happened to me too. So I don't know, just tires flexing too much. Maybe it needs to be run at higher PSI, but I had the same issue.
Now,
yeah, it's not made to be running like below 15 pounds PSI in it. That's for sure.
Right.
When I first got my Kawasaki, it had what I would call true 50/50 tires on it. Dunlop D605s, I think they were. And that was when you guys wrote me into going to Blackwater with you on 50/50 tires. And they're okay. They're cheap. They are definitely an affordable option. If you're doing more towards like just going out sightseeing, you're going to hit a little gravel, ride some national forest roads, or like ride your bike out some mild trail to go like fishing or something like that. They're a fine option. They lack the tread depth. They don't really bite, but I mean, it is a 50/50 tire, so they're definitely road biased above all else.
Yep.
Is that kind of the extent of Dunlop's offerings? Those are the ones I'm familiar with, at least.
Right. Yeah. I really like Dunlop's like Geo Max off-road tires for, hair scramble stuff. Great tires. That's all I ever ran whenever I was racing. But yeah, their Dualsport stuff I've kind of been disappointed with, honestly.
Yeah, the sidewalls aren't stiff enough.
No. The next thing that kind of jumps to my head is Shinko.
I definitely want to talk about Shinko.
Yeah, I've ran a few of their tires. Always been happy with it. Kind of seemed like a hate to keep going back to it, but akin to Trackmaster alternative. If the Trackmasters weren't available, I'd run a set of Shinkos. It was like same performance, same price, same durability. It lasted about the same time, and I know our good buddy Chris Alls is a big fan of the Shinko fatty fronts, and I really want to try one of those because, man, those look like an awesome tire.
Yeah, I run a 90/90 profile Shinko 216 MX up front, and as soon as one wears out, there's another one sitting in the corner garage ready to go on. They are my favorite front tire, especially for somebody like me that's essentially playing catch up to you guys in terms of riding abilities. Having all the grip and confidence that you can get in a DOT knobby, out of the ones that I've tried, at least.
This guy right here, if he puts that little pinch between his cheek and gum, you remember the old Popeye cartoon?
It's like Popeye.
That's Fred Spinach. He's gone. I'm telling you, I can't keep him in sight.
Oh, I'm not that fast. I'm fast as a turtle.
No, okay. You ever had any? You've definitely ran Shinkos, haven't you, Fred?
Oh yeah, that's my go-to front tire
for a while, right?
Oh yeah, Chinko MX 216.
Didn't you run a 505 cheater at one point?
I tried it once, but to me, that little extra sidewall on the black top, it seemed like it was wanting to roll just a little bit.
That makes sense because it's a soft compound tire with a little bit taller sidewall, so it's definitely going to want to roll in turns a little bit.
So that's why I stick with the 90/90.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen people try the there's a 216 fatty, which is I think a 9100 profile, and there's a fatty cheater that's a 9100 profile and a soft compound, which would be great if you're interested in riding like a lot of like rocky terrain or something like that, because that little bit of additional sidewall is, additional cushion. But I've also heard people say that they wander and it doesn't feel as precise trying to move through stuff.
I don't mean to interrupt you guys, but everybody that's watching, thank you so much for tuning in here, and please keep the comments going while we're talking about all this stuff, because I'm going to go through everybody's comments at the end, and we'll kind of shoot the breeze a little bit about what everybody's got to say. I know Shinko also has, I think it's a 244, which is, I mean, it looks like a direct rip off of akin to K270. It's a little bit cheaper.
It is, but I know on akin to K270, the side knobs are known for being squirmy, and if you ever get a hold of one, you can, roll the side knob over with your thumb. On a Shinko 244, they're interlocked to the tire carcass with a little bit more material, so they're not near as squirmy.
Yeah.
People speak really highly of them. I have one on the front of my TW200, because fat rear tire, you got to have like a 4.6, yeah, absolutely.
You can float.
Yeah. Even when you don't want to.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as an affordable 50/50 style tire, that is a fantastic option.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything Shinko is good price. I mean, that's where their main MO is.
Yep.
The price point is awesome on a Shinko tire. I ran all of their off-road stuff all the time and never had any issues with them. Get several races out of them. Hooked up great. Worked a little bit better than a Trackmaster, like as far as a race conditions concerned. So I always was a fan of Shinkos. And I know growing up, that's all we ran. When Dad had to try to keep 4 YZ252 strokes going for a whole race season, we were running Shinkos on everything, and they worked great.
Mm-hmm.
I know Tom King's tried some of the Shinko 700s, which are more of a road-oriented 50/50 style tire.
Yeah.
And he's told me repeatedly that they would surprise you in terms of, how they hook up and everything, which anytime I see a tire, like if you're looking head on, if it's like a round profile, you can't visibly see like some pretty big knobs and stuff sticking up. I'm immediately wary of it in terms of how it's going to work off road. But I mean, it might be the same vein of the Raw Z, where it doesn't look that aggressive, but it really just performs well.
Right. One here too. This is my buddy Steve Sellers. Shout out Steve. The Golden Tire. I'm pretty sure you've ran those, haven't you, Fred?
Yeah, I ran the GT 216, which is exact same tread pattern as the MX 216 front. And I also ran the GT 333 on the rear. It's kind of like the knobbies were closer together, kind of like a trials tire. It's quiet, but if you get into wet, sloppy stuff, it just packed too easy.
So you mentioned that it's the same tread pattern. Well, from what I understand, from what I've seen on the internet, is once upon a time, Golden Tire was utilizing the molds that were then sold to Shinko in some form of partnership or split or something like that, where essentially they ground the G out of the mold and put S's. And it is now, I'm sure that, being a more expensive tire, Golden Tire probably has a little bit more research and control over the rubber compound. But as far as tread pattern goes, they're virtually identical because they're made out of pretty much the same molds.
Yeah. I know a lot of the guys that might be watching that like the old school style stuff. I know for a while Shinko had the molds for the old Yokohama Super Diggers that guys used to love to run in Blackwater all the time, and they were awesome tire. And then, lo and behold, one thing happens, another thing happens, the molds disappear or they get copyright infringed on or what have you. But that happens a lot, man. The tires companies will fold up, go by the wayside, and another bigger tire company will pick up the slack, pick up the molds, and start making the same exact tire and call it something completely different.
Yeah, the Golden Tire, I think the rubber compound, like Trevor said, it is a little bit durable, so it'll give you a little extra wear on it.
But it won't. So Golden Tire is, at least 50% more in cost. It's not going to net you 50% more in wear. It's just like in my experience, a Dunlop D606 was over twice the cost of a Trackmaster for half the traction and the same amount of tread wear.
Dan Farnsworth brings up a good point here. Me personally, no. I've known a couple people that have been involved in accidents on a motorcycle. My buddy Bobby comes to mind. He was hit by a guy, about lost his leg. I don't remember what tires were on his XR650L. I'm pretty sure it was the Bridgestone Death Wings that come stock on them.
Man.
But me personally, no. I haven't ever known anybody to be stopped and get a ticket for not having a DOT tire. But
I haven't either.
I'm kind of with the mindset that I like to prepare for the worst case scenario on something, and I wouldn't want to get caught with one. God forbid I cause an accident. And
See, that's the reason I try to stick to DOT knobbies, and you do sacrifice some serious traction for running DOT knobbies, but it's not necessarily a fear that I'm going to get pulled over and a cop's going to know enough to notice that I'm running a non-DOT knobby. It's more that there's been an accident or something's happened, and then the insurance investigators show up, and that's one of the things that they look at, and then you can that can seriously affect whatever settlement case, what have you. Like if they determined that it was rainy conditions, and they speculate that if you'd had a DOT tire on it, that it wouldn't have been as likely to slide out or whatever. That's the reason I try to stick to DOT as much as possible, not for fear of for fear of the insurance adjusters.
I'm not going to set up on a high horse and sit here and say that that's all I've ever run and that's all I'm ever going to run. Hell, this crossbite I'm getting ready to throw on, the rear's not DOT 100%. And I don't know if you know what the Wright family crest says in Latin, but it says, if it's free, it's for me. And that's what I'm going to be running on this 500 KTM for sure.
Sure.
I mean, as long as you're riding local trails, I mean,
like I said earlier, it's up to you. I don't judge people for doing it one way or the other.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I think for us, a lot of times, our stuff is fairly local.
Yes.
Unless we're doing a moto camping trip where I can count on one hand the times I put in 500 miles in a weekend on a set of tires. So, I mean, if you live out west, if you're commuting a lot more, I can see spending more money on maybe like a more 70-30 bias tire.
Yep.
And you want something that has more street performance. But
or if you're one of the guys that are having to ride like an hour just to get to the trails.
Right, absolutely.
I leave where I live, and within 10 minutes, I can be at 13 Creeks or the backside of Valley Falls, or
same with us
on dirt.
Brett, you literally live right below Fort Hill. So.
Yep.
It's in the backyard, and there it is.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. I really can't think of any other tire brands off the top of my head unless you guys can. I mean, other than maybe Bridgestone, but
Continental.
Yeah, Continental.
That's stock KTM tires.
Yeah, the TKC 80s. Now, I know that I did read some stuff that there was actually recalls on the TKC 80s because they were flying apart at speed.
It's ongoing recall too.
From what I read about it, you would send your tires back to them, and they would buy you whatever tires you wanted. It didn't matter if it was a Continental or not. And last I heard, they're actually doing away with the TKC 80 and going to some completely different style tire that's not out yet, I don't think. But yeah, I mean, TKC 80s, I can't recommend them for what we do as far as like a hardcore dual sport. Now, like a bigger adventure bike, absolutely. I have them on my Versys 650. Love them. They're bulletproof, last forever. They're good on the road. And yeah, I can't recommend them for like a hardcore dual sport bike.
The big bike guys really seem to like the big block tires, like TKC 80, Kenda Big Block, tires of a similar vein. Somebody asked about covering Maxxis. I know Maxxis makes a DOT scooter tire because my buddy had a set on a Honda Grom at one point in time. But as far as like a dual sport oriented, like DOT legal knobby, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't really heard a lot out of Maxxis for a long time. I know they used to come to the GNCC races all the time, and I assume they still do. I know they used to have the big rig truck and stuff, but I've ran a few of their off-road tires as far as racing's concerned, and I've been happy with them. I don't know if I'd like to pay the price that I paid for them for the performance I got out of them, but
I mean,
I really don't know of any Maxxis dual sport tires.
Yeah, there a few months ago, I bought a Maxxis Enduro back tire. It says it's FIM approved, but it doesn't have a DOT stamp on it.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just something to throw on a back and ride local up behind the house or something.
Rob here says runs a Bridgestone M59 front, which I don't have any experience with there, and the IRC VE33S. I've ran an IRC before, and I was happy with it. It hooked up pretty good and everything. Nick Hall says old Johnny Jarvis has the Sedona M64.
Yep.
Now, Johnny had that tire when we went to Charleston there for the West Virginia Off-Highway Vehicle Coalition thing. And I was impressed with that thing. I really was. It looked like a great-looking tire. It was cheap, and it seemed to hook up really well on his KLX 250.
It'd be nice to wonder how many miles he got out of that back tire.
From what I understand, it lasted a long time.
I'm going to tell you, dude, all the time I see Johnny riding around Fairmont. I mean, all the time. That I kind of think that's his main mode of transportation. So he's definitely got miles on that thing.
I think they're like an 8-ply, aren't they?
Yeah, they're heavy.
They're like a desert terrain tire, like a hard terrain tire.
Right. I'm pretty sure you had that on when we went to Brandywine too and did the Rocky Run ATV trail. I know he had it. We were out at Mark Single Track sometime last summer, and he had it on there, and it was already, it had some serious wear to it, but it seemed to do pretty well. Yeah, that's how he got his nickname. Johnny Jarvis was down there at the Rocky Run ATV trail, standing up. He's kind of a shorter guy, like Graham Jarvis was, and he was just wheelie turning that little KLX around every one of the little rock faces and hooking up and going great. So, I mean, never run it personally, but just from what I can see with him, it seems like a really good tire.
So, kind of as we're wrapping up, I mean, what are your guys' favorite combos for what we typically ride?
I hate to keep going back to it, man, but honestly, it's set of Trackmasters. If you point a gun to my head, or say a new guy comes to the group and says, "Hey, I want a tire that works really well and everything," I'm going to tell him, buy 2 or 3 sets of Trackmasters.
I mean, that was me. That was, after I'd got done cussing my Dunlop D605s, I think it was Sean Yalaz or somebody that said, you need to get Trackmasters. Or I think maybe it was Fred, because I remember sitting in the parking lot at the Walmart in Grafton, and was sitting there cussing, not being able to hook up. And Fred's like, you need to try Trackmaster. I remember going home and looking at those things for the first time, being like, there's no way that's road legal.
Oh, yeah. Well, back then it was what, like $45?
Oh, it was great. I was buying them left and right.
Yeah. I mean, the podcast is named that. There's no way Kenda doesn't sponsor us or anything like that. But
yeah,
it's funny to me how kind of a joke is kind of the best Dualsport tire you can get, honestly, to me.
Yeah, if you're in a hard
for what we do,
you're riding.
Yeah.
My graveyard of used tires can attest. It is a Shinko 216 MX up front and a Trackmaster in the rear.
I really want to try that.
Anything different is if I get it for free.
Yeah, I really want to try that 216 front for sure. And I'll let you guys know how these cross bites do. Hopefully here maybe this weekend or sometime next week. I'm going to try to get those mounted up and put on. And who knows, might be another good option. Might be crap. Who knows? They were free. Thank you, Dad. I'm going to run them until there's nothing left of them. What about you, Fred? What's your favorite combo?
Yeah, my favorite would be of course the Shinko 216 up front for the hard core riding stuff. As far as the back goes, I really love that Kenda Parker, but I'm going to try this Gauntlet out this coming spring up behind the house there.
Sure.
And a little bit of creek crossing,
some
hill climbs and stuff.
Yep.
But other than that, those Moto Z or Motaz tires that people call them, raw Zs, shoot, I can run those things 90% of what we ride. And you can easily get 2,500 miles out of them.
Right. One thing I'd like to point out too, like you, for example, having an extra set of wheels, that's a big advantage, I think. Yeah. So you might be able to set yourself up to where you have a hardcore set if you're going to do some really extreme riding that day, or if there's a lot more road riding, say like the easy loop on our ride or something that day, you can swap your wheels out real quick and run something that's maybe more road friendly. I think that's a big advantage.
That's definitely
something convenient.
That's something I'm hoping to accomplish this year, is getting a second set of wheels. I'd like to apologize in advance for Arthur Punsack walking out to his brand new KTM 350 sitting up on a milk crate with no wheels. They're in a good home.
The front's at my house.
So I'd love to have a second set of wheels. I'd love to have a set of like more adventure oriented tires. But as it stands, I got one set of wheels. I can run one tire. I would rather compromise road performance and tire wear in exchange for traction. I've never been in a situation where I've thought, man, I've got too much traction. I wish I had less of it.
Mhm.
I don't know what to do, man. This is terrible. I got to put a worse tire on here.
Yeah, it's, I shouldn't have ran a Trackmaster for this ride. It's hooking up way too good going up some of this stuff. I need to be struggling a little bit more. And
I think we've covered a good chunk of the main brands and the main tires. The one thing that I'd like to maybe talk about just a little bit before we get off here. What's your guys' thoughts? And I know you both can kind of attest to what you want to say about them, but as far as bibs or tubeless systems versus a regular tube, because that's a big part too.
Well, I do run a bib in my front tire, even on the blacktop, but I haven't put one in the back because I think it'd just heat up way too quick and it'd fall apart.
I remember on your birthday ride, Brian Holmes had his big Husky 701. And I know that being a big bike, it's going to be even less forgiving to a Moose. But it started the day at probably a simulated 15-ish PS, 15 to 20 PSI. And by the end of the day, it looked airless. It looked flat, like simulating next to no pressure at all. But he did state that was already a pretty worn Moose. I've only ran tubes. I've looked into tubeless extensively and came to the conclusion that, if something would happen, you'd pick up a nail or a deck screw, which is pretty common around here, unfortunately.
Mhm.
And it punctures that inner bladder unless you carry another inner bladder with you. Otherwise, you're just going to take the tubeless out and stuff a tube in there.
Yeah.
To me, that's not an improvement over just running like a 2 millimeter, heavier duty tube.
Well, Fred, you can kind of talk about that too, because if you remember when we got to the top of the hill where the Rocky Run ATV trail started there at the Shenandoah 519, there was a guy there that had punctured the inner bladder on that tubeless. You remember him sitting there changing that thing?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, he had to change it out. But he did finally put a plug actually in the tire, and he did have some difficulties in airing it back up. But once he got it aired up, it actually stayed.
I'm kind of with you, Trevor. If you puncture that inner bladder on that thing, you're no better off than a regular tube.
And the thing with tubes is, I carry a spare tube. I also carry a patch kit. So if I get in a situation where I've already swapped the tube and then get another hole in either end, I can then at least, cross my fingers, hold my tongue the right way and pray to the, right deities that the patch holds. As far as I know, there's not really a patch kit usable for the high pressure inner bladder of the tubeless system. The likelihood of actually puncturing it, I guess, is relatively slim. But if it happens, especially if you're out in the middle of nowhere, I can have the rear or front tire off pretty quick, have the tube changed quick, be back on the trail.
Yeah.
Versus, having to completely dismount the tire off the rim to remove the tubeless if it's, the inner bladder's punctured and ruined, and then having to stuff a tube in it and go from there.
I know there's been a lot of stuff recently, tube technology, so to speak, like the tubeless coming out. There's kits out there to actually seal your spoked rims up to make them tubeless, which, I think me and you both follow that Jake the Garden Snake guy on YouTube, and he did that on those MT-07 wheels he built. Seems to be working pretty well. And then I know a lot of the manufacturers now, especially on the bigger adventure bikes, with the spoked wheels, you actually see the spokes on a really sharp angle, so that
Yep.
the spokes on the very edge of the wheel, and you can still have a spoked wheel that's tubeless because there's no holes on the inside of the rim for the air to escape. And
So-
I think you're going to see that a lot more. I think maybe even on smaller dual sport bikes. As far as me, I've ran heavy duty tubes pretty much my whole life. I know when I was racing and was really concerned with it, I used to take a stock tube and cut the center of it out and wrap it around the heavy duty tube. And then that way, if you did get a flat on the heavy duty tube, there was so much stuff stuffed in the tire that you could still get away with. It's like running something on 4 PSI to get you back to the pits at least.
Yeah.
As far as dual sports go, I've always run just heavy duty IRC tubes. Had pretty good luck out of them. I do have a foam insert that I actually got off of Mikey that I bought off of Fred's boy. It's a 21-inch front and a 19-inch rear. I can't use the rear, obviously, but I don't think I would. And I'm really considering putting that bib mousse in the front of mine when I put these new Tusk tires on, just to try something different. And I think I'm going to actually, and then just run a heavy-duty tube in the back.
Yeah, when I changed my front tire out after all season long, shoot, that bib still looked like it was new.
Yeah.
But I did put a extra, like 2 tubes of that lube on it.
Yep. That makes all the difference for me.
It doesn't matter what you do in life that makes the difference. You got to have lube.
Got to lube it up.
A word, you mentioned those kits that you can buy to seal up spoked wheel. The component that it misses is with tubeless, that inner bladder, from what I understand, especially like in the front, swells to press the bead of the tire against the rim. So it allows you to run obnoxiously low tire pressures at single-digit PSI, whereas one of those kits for, that's just got the epoxy or whatever to go around your spoke nipples or whatever, you're missing out on. It'd be the equivalent of trying to run 5 PSI on a non-bead-lock tire on a Jeep. It will de-bead at some point without anything that's actively keeping that bead seated.
Right. Yeah, like Steve Sellers' last comment there, that's kind of come from the mountain bike world and then come over to our world, and seems to be working out really well for those guys. And I mean, for the most part, from what I've seen, it works out good for the motorcycles too. As anything you guys can think of that we didn't touch on, that any tire brands or anything you can think of?
Well, there is one tire brand, but I don't think they even make a DOT tire. Is it the Ching Ching?
The old Wang Chang fuck chew.
Those are DOT.
Yeah, absolutely. FIM certified too. That's correct.
It might last a weekend ride.
That's
so. A couple years back, me and my old man went to the Mid Ohio Vintage Days, and there was an 18-inch Shenching, like I want to say it was a 140, or it might even have been a standard like 6.10 by 18. The thing was, it's wide as our computer screen, and the knobs were literally that tall. It was like a paddle tire. I mean, that's all it was.
I need one of those for my T-Dub.
And my good buddy Jason King, which is Tom King's boy, he has a KX500, and I was dumb enough and he was nice enough to let me borrow that KX500 to race the Snowshoe GNCC on, and it needed a rear tire. And guess what got put on it? That big old Shenching. Let me tell you something. When you got a 500 two-stroke Kawasaki live engine start in downtown Snowshoe, she stands straight up and down. So it's got plenty of asphalt hookup. I think it should be DOT approved.
And they're pretty reasonable as far as price goes too.
Yeah. Well, guys, I appreciate it, man. I think that kind of covers about everything that we can ramble on about for another hour and 15 minutes here.
Yeah.
Fred, I appreciate you coming on, man. And
hey, no problem. Oh, you're welcome.
Help us out. I know you are our tire expert, and
you go through more tires in a season than most people do in several years of riding.
Well, I'll tell you what, my brother, he's got the Motaz Adventure tires on his 690,
Mm-hmm.
and he ran them last year. And I need to talk to him to see how many miles he's got on those. 'Cause I'm kind of interested on, because I think they're a little more aggressive looking.
Yeah, that could be a whole nother segment too. Is adventure tires, and it's something that I think we could get into someday. Maybe go over adventure bikes and adventure tire setups for sure.
One last brand, the same company that makes the Super Swampers, the Boggers, all that stuff. I don't know if they still make it, but I see it mentioned on Adventure Rider from one of the guys I follow. It's called a Terraflex Bodo Steel, and he runs it on a KTM, I think 950 Super Enduro R, like the twin cylinder bike they made for like 2 years. It had no traction aids or anything, but the knobs on it look like they're 3 inches tall. I mean, it sounds like it's really similar to that Ching Ching tire. But again, it's a desert oriented tire, and the sidewall's, stiff as a rock.
I really think a lot of the Dualsport tires did kind of come from the desert racing scene. They figured out that they needed something that lasted really long in the hard packed sand, the hard packed rocks out there, and thought, well, let's put a DOT stamp on it. This will make a really good Dualsport tire. So I think that's a lot of that technology comes from that, especially for durability and stuff that wants to last a long time. Awesome, guys. Well, appreciate you tuning in, everybody that commented and kept going over all of our stuff here. Like I said, we'll still keep doing this every Tuesday at 8 o'clock. I think the next episode we're going to do, episode 4, is going to be we'll go over our gear. What's your jackets, your whatever you ride with, your riding clothing, and then kind of what you carry with you as far as tools. I think that'd be a really good topic to go over, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of information as far as that goes.
I'm excited.
All right.
I know my way around a trail toolkit by this point. So
KTM. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in again. Like I said, Fred, we appreciate it, and we'll make sure to have you back on again for sure.
Oh, you're welcome. You guys have a good one.
You too. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Bye.